Remember, the reason why the bond market started spiraling out of control was not the immediate aftermath of Liberation Day. So Liberation Day was a Wednesday. You had Thursday, Friday. The stock market wiped out $7 trillion in value, but the bond market was doing okay. It wasn't until the weekend, because that's when you had CEA Chair Steve Moran saying, being the US dollar as the world reserve currency is a burden that we don't want anymore. And that's when everyone freaked out, and here's why. There are two sides of the ledger. There's the trade balance, and we have overall a deficit. We have a surplus when it comes to services, but overall, with goods and services combined, we do have a trade deficit. The other side of the ledger is your capital accounts balance. And there, we have a surplus, because if you go onto Amazon and you buy a TV from Japan, I go to the grocery store, I get my avocados from Mexico, you buy your wife a handbag from Italy, all of those US dollars that go around the world, what do people do with them? They either use them as a medium of exchange, which maintains the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, or you buy US treasuries. And US treasuries historically have been the world's safe haven. And part of why the post-Liberation Day fallout after that weekend was really weird is because usually if stocks tank, the bonds are supposed to do much better. But instead, the yields exploded, which meant the value of the bonds went down. And in part, that's because you had capital flight, which is something you really only see in emerging markets. You do not see that in the US. And that was a very scary moment. And that's why the pivot came from Trump when he said, no, we are entertaining deals. I'm the king of the deal. I know the art of the deal. I'll make a deal. And that's why everything has chilled out since then. If we did not have a trade deficit, that would mean that the money isn't flowing back into treasuries. And to put this into real terms, with, let's say, this very large and I think incipient faction of the GOP that doesn't want to cut entitlement spending, right? Donald Trump won, saying, I'm not going to cut entitlement spending. Okay, well, part of the way we're able to have as much social spending as we do, where it's like, 40% of all births are covered by Medicaid. The only reason why we're able to finance that is because the trade deficit keeps bond yields low, which allows us to have really low borrowing costs. Other countries can't have one-to-one debt to GDP or debt to GDP ratios, right? The only reason we can is because we can finance our debt at much lower rates than everyone else. The moment we don't have a trade surplus, that goes away.